Let's dive into Tanner's training so we can stay consistent at home. Whenever we're working with Tanner, we want to make sure we reinforce the good behavior that we want to continue to see from him, while we also want to remember to follow through and correct the unwanted behavior that we don't want to continue to see from Tanner. With a dog like Tanner, we want to make sure that we have very clear boundaries and we follow those boundaries consistently. So let's dive into his training equipment. Whenever we take Tanner for a walk, I recommend having him on a sturdy leash. You can even do 2 leashes if it makes you feel comfortable, and have him attached to the D-ring of the prong collar. So you want him attached to the one that swivels. How we're going to put this on and take it off Tanner is we are going to grab a link right here, push the link above down, and it goes around his neck. And then when we're putting it on, we squeeze this link into the one in front of it so it lines up like that. Now, when we're walking with Tanner, for example, let's go over the heel command. So whenever you're out walking with him, Tanner should be in the heel command. I would say 95% of your walk, he is walking next to you in a nice structured way. Of course, we're occasionally giving rewards to encourage him to stay next to us and also to make the walk fun. The other 5%, you can give him the release term free, which free means he is done with that set behavior or command, so he doesn't have to stay in that command. So let's say Tanner is in the heel. He's supposed to be walking with us and he gets a little distracted. We are going to mark that distracted behavior, like let's say he walks ahead of us, with a verbal no. We're going to pop and release, following through, and then we're going to tell him heel. We're going to remind him of what the command is that he should be walking in. For example, let's say you're passing by somebody, whether that be a dog, someone walking a dog, just a person, or especially even a bike. He needs to heel and ideally look at you to get a reward, because he will see the distraction and he's got 2 options. He can either get frustrated and triggered by that distraction, and then we're going to have that explosive behavior that we want to try to avoid. But if he sees the distraction and we go heel, that's going to break his concentration, because he's going to hear the command turn to you, and then we're going to reward that behavior. So he understands when you see a distraction, look at me, get a reward. That way he doesn't have that really explosive behavior that we're trying to avoid, because that leads to bad decisions on his part. So we want to make sure we are aware on our walks so that we can advocate for him and give him a little help when needed. Of course, if he locks into that distraction, heel, pop, pop, get his attention so he looks at us, and then we can make it a positive interaction by rewarding when that distraction passes by. And maybe we need to stop and have him sit, but we'll talk about that with the sit command. So let's talk about the remote collar and how we would use that. We have both collars on when he's on a walk. And then when he comes home, you don't have to rush to take this off, especially if you're going to be around him. That way you have that extra collar for communication. So how to turn on the remote, this on-off button back here. We're going to push and hold that until the screen lights up, and on the screen you will see a number 25. That is this black S button right here. So we're going to talk about that here in just a second. But now that this is on, you can turn on the collar for Tanner. It is a magnet to turn his collar on. So we have the red dot right here, matching red dot. We're going to touch these 2 together. See a green light. Once you've seen that green light, take them apart. Now this collar's on, ready to go. And you'll see black S button is 25. Now we'll go over the other features of the remote collar at the very end of the video. So now you have this too. The situation, it depends which one you're going to use. Like, so we're on a heel, right? And we're walking along, and all of a sudden we see a group of bikers riding their bicycles towards us. I would have him sit in this scenario so that we can have the leash and also in a comfortable position in our right hand while rewarding him with the left, so that he has a positive association with that going by. But let's say you don't see them, right? So you're walking with the leash. You have the leash in both hands. You have the leash in your left hand and your right hand, and you have this in your right hand with the black S button with your thumb resting on it. And you're coming up to a crosswalk, but there's a building, and all of a sudden a bike rides by, and he gets that like sound. He makes that kind of excited, like, whoa. No, push the black S button, see my thumb twitch, and then give him the heel command and maybe pop the leash if needed, right? Because your knee-jerk reaction is going to be to tighten up the leash, but we don't want that constant tension. That can lead to frustration. If you're going to use the leash, it's a pop and release, not constant tension. So he broke the heel because the heel is nice, calm, walking right next to us. So if he sees a bike and gets, you know, that pumped up, not quite a bark, but a little more than a growl, no, heel. So that way he understands to heel next to you, even if there's a big distraction. Have him stop, have him sit. Once he's calmed down in about 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how long he takes, good sit, we reward the behavior. So again, ending that on a positive note versus dwelling on the negative. So that's how you're going to use the remote collar. All right, so we talked about your walk. So now sit, for example, again, kind of like we talked about. Sit has stay implied until you tell him either free or heel. So for example, you're going out the door, set the tone for your walk, have him sit for door manners, and then free or heel out the door for the rest of your walk, right? So sit means stay until he's told free or heel. If he gets up from your sit before you tell him the next command, no, follow through. Now, of course, it depends on if you're going to use one or both. It kind of depends on the situation. I sometimes mix it up. That way he understands that the boundaries are the same no matter if we're just practicing a little simple door manners or we're out in public. So kind of mix it up a little bit, whatever's convenient for you and whatever works for the situation. If you don't have the remote collar in your hand and you have it around your neck on the lanyard, then use the leash. So now let's talk about downstay and play stay. So downstay you're going to use when you take him in public, for example, like going to the vet, or if you're trying a field trip to just get him out more a little bit and you want him in a longer duration stay. In the beginning, always have the leash in your hand with Tanner. Don't do a bunch of distance stuff unless you have a safety net person with you. So you'll see in the videos here in a second, I put him in a down, I kind of walk away, but the other trainer is close by watching and keeping an eye on him. That way we can practice the distance stuff, but always keep a leash in your hand in the beginning to practice safety first. So down means lay down and stay. And you saw that in the lobby where people were walking by. Anytime he sees a trigger, we're going to reward him for looking at us. Because with Tanner, if he stares at something too long, that's when he gets that explosive behavior. So he looks at the distraction, looks at us, good down, we reward, right? Let's say we're practicing at Home Depot or a Lowe's or something, we have him in a down. Shopping cart goes by, he's in a down, he looks at the cart, he looks at us, good down, and we reward. If he continues to look at the cart and he doesn't look at us, we go Tanner down. That breaks his attention because he hears you talking to him. He looks at you and then we can reward. If he gets up from the downstay before you tell him free, no, follow through with the training equipment, put him back in the down until you tell him free. So let's say you're working on the downstay, you go back to him and you tell him good job, free, and then he can get up. Now let's talk about place. So place is the boundary stay on an elevated bed for when people come over, for when it's time to coexist with Banks or your other dog, Annika, at home. Place means stay on the boundary, keep all 4 paws on the boundary, and relax. This should be a relaxed command. Now, of course, he can stand and he can sit on the place bed, but I would prefer it if he laid down and relaxed. So we're going to reinforce when he does that. And you can even tell him down on the place bed. He understands that concept, but if, let's say you're practicing with the doorbell or something at home that you know has triggered him in the past, the first time you do it, he is likely going to stand up and bark on the place bed. You'll tell him no, because barking is breaking the rules of place. The rules of place are you're to be calm on this mat and keep all 4 paws on the mat, on the bed, no matter what's going on. So if he does anything like barking, stepping off the bed, or doing anything that's not just being calm on this bed, no, follow through, tell him place, and then do the distraction again, the doorbell again, until he is calm, and then he can get a reward. And of course, you'll see an example of that in the video. We kind of talked about it earlier. So then when he's done with place, let's say you want to work on having him on place where you can go and play with Banks outside or be in another room away from him. Just slowly work on creating more distance with him, like you'll see here in the video here in a little bit. When it's time to free him from place and he is done doing that command, you'll go up to him, tell him he did a good job. The rewards always go on the bed, so he thinks the bed is the positive zone, and then we'll tell him free. Again, we want to reinforce the behaviors you want to continue to see, so when he stays really nicely on the bed, make sure to reinforce that. Now let's talk about come when called. So in your yard or if you're out at a park, always out of park and public, safety first, have a long leash on him. That way if he doesn't come when you call, you can reel him in like a fish. So he understands anywhere, anytime I call you, I need you to come right then and there, not when you feel like it. in your backyard, of course, without banks. You can have him off the leash as long as it's a fenced-in area. So come means come to me. It means come from point A to point B, and that's in my space at a pretty quick pace. Doesn't have to be a sprint, right? But he has to come pretty quickly. If he ignores our command, no, we follow through, call him again. That's with all the commands, right? But when he does come to us, we're still going to give a little bit of a reward because we want him to understand that coming back to me is always going to be a good option for you, because we want to create that reward history. A reward history is a positive association with doing a certain behavior and getting positive feedback for it. So that's with all of his commands, but especially come when called, because it is an important one. So that's how to correct. Of course, to reward, when you call him, Tanner, come, and he's coming to you, praise that behavior of him walking to us and coming into our space, have him sit, and then reward. So that's come when called. Now we have leave it. Leave it is a generic command of don't grab that, don't eat that. So I like to practice with hot dogs because, of course, that's tempting for him to want to eat. So drop a hot dog on the floor, tell him leave it. If he leaves it, great, praise. You can reward that. If he still shows interest in it, we apply leave it. So all of these commands, you do want to practice and like set time aside to practice them. You don't have to do every single command every day, but you want to make sure that you keep the memory of them and do, I would say, at least once a week, right? So like you might not use come when called every day. You might not use leave it every day. You might not even use downstay every day. Heal in place you'll use every day, but the others you might not use those every day, but make sure to practice them once a week. That way they stay in his long-term memory, because it does take a dog 2 to 3 weeks to learn a behavior, but 4 to 6 months or 500 reps to have long-term memory of those commands and behaviors. So of course we're going to be cautious with Tanner. We understand that he has certain triggers for him that are going to fire him up and could lead to aggressive behavior. We are trying to not coddle him because the world is going to have distractions, but we're trying to stay ahead of it and promote and reward that calm behavior so we don't have those big explosions. So make sure to stay, on top of his training, reward the behaviors you want to continue to see. We're not coddling him, but we're showing him, hey, if you do those good behaviors, you will continue to get good feedback. And then, of course, when you make a mistake or you make a bad choice, consequences will happen, and we're going to follow through every single time to decrease the rate of those unwanted behaviors, which could lead to, of course, dangerous behaviors. So have fun with Tanner, but stay consistent, and we're going to show you Tanner's commands in action. Down. Good boy, Tanner. That's a good down, buddy. Down. 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 Good boy. Down. We're back. Good down. Good. Thank you. Down. Good boy. Good down. Laying on your leash. Free. Good boy. Good boy, Tanner. Okay, let's dive into the other features of the remote collar. We don't really need that right now. So we know how to turn the remote on. Back here, let's turn it off. So we push and hold it, and the screen is off. So you're pushing and you're holding it until the screen lights up and the screen turns off. If you don't push and hold it, if you just tap it, you'll end up activating his flashlight feature, which is nice because at night you can see him, but if you leave that on, it'll drain the battery. This should last 24 hours, and he should only wear this 12 to 14 hours a day. So it should last about 2 days as long as you're turning it off at night. So how to turn the collar off is you do the same thing. You touch the two together. Red is off, green is on. So if you turn it off after each day, then it should last 2 days and you can charge it like every other day. So we talked about the black S button being 25. The red S button is a boost feature. Why would we need this? Well, when he has gone above and beyond that normal threshold. So one example would be, let's say you have him and he sees a bunny rabbit and wants to chase it, and you accidentally drop the leash and he takes off for it and he's going for a road or something like that, where his adrenaline is up and he is no longer able to comprehend what we're saying because he's so focused on that bunny rabbit, for example. You say, Tanner, no, come. And he's like, I can't even hear you right now. I'm going after that bunny. Well, level 25 works to about here down, right, for his adrenaline, right? So if that bunny puts him here, oh, we're stuck. So that boost feature snaps him back into reality. So that's what the red button is. It is the emergency button for when he gets in that really high adrenaline state. So it's going to increase it quite a bit. We haven't needed this with Tanner, not even when he first saw the bike and he had that little episode, because I don't want him to have a negative association with seeing a bike. I want him to have a positive association with seeing a bicycle, but I want him to have a negative association with the reaction that he had. So you wouldn't use this when we're working around banks, for example. When we're working around banks, you're going to use primarily just the leash, because I want Tanner to understand that any pressure that he feels is coming from us because he's doing a certain behavior. I don't want him to think that Banks is magically correcting him because of something. It is coming from us. We are saying no, and we are pulling on the leash and saying, Tanner, don't do that. I'm telling you not to do that. Banks has nothing to do with this. So that is a very important part of this, is when we're working around Banks, it is on leash, and we are not using the remote collar for stuff with Banks as far as like reintroducing them or anything like that. Now, if you're taking them both for a walk and Tanner is trying to dart at a bush because he saw a piece of pizza under there or something like that, you can use the collar to correct that behavior because he's supposed to be in the heel. But I'm talking about like when they're in the home and they see each other, if Tanner barks, no, we're using the leash. So you're going to have the leash on in the home, especially in the beginning when we're reintroducing Banks and Tanner together. Okay, got off subject. Back to the remote collar. The T button over here is vibrate. So it'll vibrate like a normal, like a cell phone. This, I like to make sure before putting this collar on Tanner, push the vibrate a few times to make sure we have this on ready to go, because sometimes the magnet is tricky and you accidentally touch it together and it shuts it off right before you're going to go put this on. So tap, tap to make sure the vibrate feature is on ready to go before you put it on Tanner so it can actually be used in that session. Okay, so we went over the light feature. The little M/C button is the momentary/continuous. You do not have to worry about that because in the beginning we use continuous, which means if we push and hold the button, it'll continuously stimulate on a much lower level, just to introduce what the collar is, to pair it with treats, so it's a positive association with him. Now we're using it as a tool to try and decrease the rate of unwanted behaviors. So we don't need the continuous, we're just going to use the momentary. Okay, so level 25 is working great. Now this is the dial to adjust the level. It is locked right now. To unlock it, let's say you want to change it, we're going to push down and hold. Now the 1D at the top is going to flash, and now we can turn it down or turn it up, whatever we need to do. So when would you need to do this, or how do you know when it needs to be up or down or whatever? If you're having to use this so many times in a row for simple behaviors that you know he's practiced here. He should not be needing this many reminders with the remote collar. It's time to turn the level up. It might be because your home is more distracting for him, or he's just kind of challenging you guys. Turn it up to 35, or 30 or 35, that's fine. If you notice that he is having a dramatic reaction to it, maybe we need to turn it down to 20. Maybe there's not as many distractions at your home, so he doesn't need as much of a reminder, so we can always turn that level down. But right now, 25 is the sweet spot for him, so we're going to lock it in place by pushing down and holding for a couple seconds, and then we can see that it is not moving. It is rechargeable. So there is a charger in the box that will go to both. And this is waterproof, so he can actually get wet or go swimming, and this is totally fine. But I would keep that little rubber part closed. That way dirt, debris, and water, they don't get mixed in under there. Charger for both. Now this is a clicker. This is supposed to mean that a reward is coming, but to have this and the leash and the remote and a treat in your hand all at once is a lot, so I just like to use praise, which he understands food is coming with praise. He does not have long hair, so you don't have to worry about the extenders and extra lanyard. And then, of course, under here, we have the warranty. If for some reason something's not working, give them a call. They will fix it for you. But it does have a 2-year warranty. So this is the instruction manual. It goes over all the buttons in greater detail, but we did cover that. So I would hang on to this box, or at the very least hang on to that paper in there. Oh, I didn't put this back in. That way, if something does happen to it, give them a call. They'll help you fix it. So yeah, that 2-year warranty is really nice. So those are the other features of the remote collar. We kind of dipped back into like how to work with him at banks and everything. It is a learning game for him. You just have to make sure that you are very consistent and aware of our surroundings and working with him, because we have to understand that he does have a few limitations with his personality. We are trying to work through those. When in doubt, if you feel uncomfortable, have him wear the muzzle. That way, there's no doubt if anything happens, you're good, you're covered, he's safe from causing anybody harm. The only thing about the muzzle is it's a little bit difficult to put treats in there, but he can survive without those for a little bit, okay? All right, so have fun, stay consistent, and let us know if you have any questions.